Okay, so now that we've gotten in our past unit, we talked about how to bring in the ggPlot package and used strictly just the qplot or quick plot functionality. But now let's actually dive into some of the more robust functionalities within ggPlot. So this is where, to me, with R, it does get a little bit confusing in that it seems like the syntax and the nature of when the arguments come in of calling your data set versus referring to your parameters and variables within the data set does seem to shift based on what given package you're using. So quite honestly, I have to look it up from time to time as well because it's not very consistent. And this comes from people that write these libraries in R. They kind of go about it different ways. So unfortunately, that's just how it works. So so here you can see, first off, I'm calling my data set, and then I'm actually spelling out what my variables are going to be. So up first is actually calling my AES stands for aesthetics. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my X parameter is going to be displacement, my Y is going to be miles per gallon, and then I could run it just as this. Okay, so, oh, sorry, nope, can't do that. Actually, I do need to add the extra component. So I need to tell it what type of graph I actually want. Okay, so as you can see, when I type GEOM, I get a whole list of potential ones I could use. The one I want to use for this one is geometric point. Okay, so I'm going to run that. And again, here you go. Just again, real basic chart showing my displacement and miles per gallon. Okay, so while that one was showing what we call, geometric points, you can see I've got, basically a scatter plot there. The other thing I can do is let me show you a different type of chart. So the same is going to apply of displacement in miles per gallon, only now my chart type is going to be a line chart. Okay, so you can see everything is the same with the exception of, at the end, geometric line versus a geometric point. Okay, so same thing, just a little bit different. Okay. Okay, so while we've done a geometric point and then a geometric line, it's important to note the other thing that we can do is, sometimes I might want to see both. So the syntax for that is fairly straightforward. So everything will be the same up to this point, and I'm just simply going to say I want a geometric line, and then to do a second parameter, I just simply use the plus sign. And then I'll include geometric point. Okay. Run that, and I got a goof here. Let's see where I went wrong. Geometric line, geometric point. Oh, incorrect equals sign here. There we go, correct that, and we'll go ahead and run it. And then now you can see I've got actually a line chart, but it actually indicates the points as well. So really just kind of adds a little more context to what we're doing. So those are a few of the plot features. Another one that I like to use from here is called the bar plot command. And again, this is where I get a little frustrated with syntactical differences within R. But here I'll call mtcars, and then I'll specify that I want the miles per gallon parameter. And then I'll simply run that. And you can see I've got, again, a really, really, really basic bar plot. Okay, so of course the next thing I want to do is I want to give this thing a little bit more context, right? So I'm going to go about it the same way, right? So I'm going to go bar plot MT cars, and then I'm going to say miles per gallon, and then the parameter that I'm going to use for my heading is main. And then I'm going to do it's kind of a string, so it's of course going to have to be in quotes, and I'll just say something like miles per gallon. So that'll add a title for me. So here's another nice variation we can do. We'll do a couple of things here. So I'm going to define a variable named cylinder count, CYL count. Okay, and another function that's in this that I can use is I can feed certain parameters into a table. So let me show you what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to say empty cars, and I've got that parameter for cylinders, right? So number of cylinders the car has, right? So, a car will either have 4, 6, 8 cylinders typically. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and store that value into that variable, okay? So let's see what that looks like. So if I just run cylinder count, and you come down here, you can see I don't have any labels, but what this is telling me is I have 11 cars in my data set with 4 cylinders, I have 7 cars in the data set with 6 cylinders, and 14 cars with 8 cylinders, all right? So now that I have that stored into a data set, one thing I might like to do is actually dump this out into a bar plot. Okay, so now I can just simply call my variable that I made. Okay, and you can see over here now it's actually graphing what I saw down here, right? So 11 cars that have 4 cylinders, 7 cars with 6 cylinders, etc. Now another option you have is actually to create a bar chart, is using the ggPlot functionality as well within ggPlot. Okay, so what does that look like? Again, same kind of similar concept, only your output looks a little bit different. So as you can see, you got just how it handles those defaults, right? So it's actually showing, of course, a 5-cylinder car isn't too common these days. Years ago, you used to have an inline 5. They don't really make those anymore. Never heard of a 7-cylinder, so can't say I'm too surprised by that. So while in most cases, in most statistical and visualization purposes, we would want to show these values that have these columns that have nothing, so a 5-cylinder, 7-cylinder, etc. In this case, since we know there's 5-cylinder cars really don't exist anymore, 7-cylinder cars never really did. We want to make those gaps go away. Okay, so to do that, we need to treat our data here as a statistical factor. So we're just going to use the factor command. So same concept, I'll pull in my data set just like I did earlier and just simply add that factor parameter. And now watch what happens. So it eliminates those null values and it gives me a little fuller looking chart, which I prefer. So while that worked, I'm not a huge fan of the labeling and that sort of thing within the quick plot function. So the alternative to that is doing it in ggplot. So here I'll call my data set MT cars. Again, AES is my aesthetics. Okay. So once again, I'm going to use my factor command. I'll call cylinders as my variable, and then I'm going to use a geometric bar chart. Okay, so as you can see, gives me more options here to do it this way. Typically, as a rule, anytime you can use actual ggplot functionality instead of the qplot functionality, you're going to get a lot more ways to really beef that chart up.